Welcome everyone. Today's webinar is part of our Learn at Lunch webinar series. This series is presented thanks to a grant from the USDA's Farm Service Agency. Today's speaker is Dr. Eric DeVries from the Oklahoma State University Department of Agricultural Economics. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat box in the lower right corner and they will be answered at the end of the webinar. Additional resources on financial and production management are available on the eFarm Management Training website. I will post a link to this site in the chat box. Eric, I'll turn it over to you now.
We're going to talk about a couple decision tools today. The first is the Osu Crop Budgeting App, which was released earlier this summer, and a new version is ready to go up and update momentarily. And then we're going to talk about the Oklahoma Wheat Stalker Budget Generator. It goes along with a recent release from Trent Malachek, a recent article he posted on the value of gain from wheat stalkers, and the tool will help you project some of that and project profits as well. So the Crop Budgeting app is available both at the App Store from Apple and from Google Play. And at the end of the PowerPoint, there's some links to those. There's a splash screen that comes up, and then it takes you directly into this screen. The new version has instructions on this screen, and that should be posted. I'm hoping by the end of this week the update will be up there. And from here, there are a number of functions you can click on. The first one is that I want to point you out to is this plus sign, which is how you add or create a budget. And so you'll get a screen that looks like this. And so you type in something that you want to describe the budget here, and then you hit the next button and you get a screen. For example, I typed in this earlier today. And then you get a screen that says, what crops do you want? Right now we have 8 crops from Oklahoma in here. You click on one, and I just did wheat quickly this morning. And you click on that, but you can do multiple crops within each saved budget that you build. So when you get that, you're going to enter information on expected revenues from, for example, your grain, government program payments, if you've got pasture revenue or other revenues, maybe you're baling and selling hay to someone. And then as you scroll down, you continue scrolling down on that screen, you're going to enter expenses. A lot of these look like the OSU budgets, the online budgets that Roger Saws oversees. And in fact, what's going to happen is Roger will be entering his budget information into these. It'll be saved online, and later I'll show you how you can download that template onto your phone and use that as a starting point. So these are just continuing with the expenses. It calculates how much capital you're using and an interest rate on your operating. And then you get to a summary of revenue and expenses and break-even yield and price. This dollar per acre is corrected. That field is corrected in the version that'll be going up hopefully later this week. When we go back to the first screen, when you click on the upper left on that kind of those 3 vertical buttons there, you can see that you can sort your budgets that you saved by name, newest, oldest, or by crop. And here's where you can download the OSU budget. It'll download that template, and you can start using that as a starting point. If you click on help, there's a tutorial. It'll take you through that and show you how do I run this app. If you're fairly new to phone apps, like some of our clientele might be, that most of them would be familiar with it, but some of them wouldn't. If we click on the About button, you'll get information about the Agricultural Economics Department. It scrolls down. The top starts with our undergraduate majors, and then our graduate programs. Talks about research and extension in here, and how you can contact the department. You can trash budgets that you don't want. You can throw them out. You actually are able to restore those budgets later if you want to. And here's the information on where to find the apps. And there's, just for information, the DASNR keeps a list of of apps that have been released by faculty and staff in the division. And about once a month, Brent posts that on our social media sites, and you can find where our current list of applications are at. And Brent also asked me to include one more slide. At the end of this, when we're done today, we'd like you to take a quick survey on today's presentation. Any questions about that app before we continue? All right, let's go into the so next I want to talk about this, the Wheat Stalker Budget Generator. This is a tool we generated, probably we produced 4 or 5 years ago at least, and we update it occasionally with new basis numbers as they become available. We use data from the Livestock Marketing Information Center for prices that go in here. That's not updated daily, it's updated weekly. And so as we go into the wheat stalker season, I update the prices on here on our online. There's a file that we host in our department server, and when you click on the update prices button, it'll download it. First thing you need to do when you download the tool and you want to use it, by the way, it's available on our website, the AgEcon website, and you go to the publications and you can search for Wheat Stalker Budget and you'll find this tool. When you start it up, first of all, you need to know that it'll only run in Excel 2013 or more recent versions. If you use older versions of the program, the macros are not going to function correctly. That's something that Microsoft, they don't make everything backward compatible when they come out with new versions of Excel. I programmed this in 2013. It's forward compatible, so newer versions will work, but the older versions don't. First thing you need to do is there's a button here that says enable content in order to run the macros in here, and you click on that. It enables the macros and we start. Just to point out, the way the macros work, they're going to go in and they're going to go into specific cells that are coded in this VBA programming language underneath Excel. So if you go in and you start trying to insert rows and columns or delete rows and columns, it'll mess things up. A few years ago, I got contacted by someone who was an OU fan and didn't like all the orange on my screen, and he didn't like that this said Oklahoma State University on it. So he started deleting rows and columns that had orange and like that, and then the program wouldn't run. And he contacted me and wanted me to fix the version that he'd messed up. And I sent him a new version, said, don't mess with my program, it'll run fine. Just a warning, anything in yellow is a field you can type into here. So we can type into this whatever we want. It's not going to use that information, but just that field. There are 2 price locations you can use. There's Oklahoma City, or there's Oklahoma Combined Auctions. That's how Livestock Marketing Information Center uses it. So this is a state average as opposed to Oklahoma City. And then it tells you the current price file is dated August 4th. If you click on this, it'll say, do you want to update it? And it'll go out and it'll grab data and say, all right, here's the data, that the latest date that's in the file, and I will start updating that soon. You're going to go in, you enter the purchase date that you have on these cattle. So I'm going to say October 25th. I'm going to keep them on wheat till about March 1st or so, toward the end of February. You can enter in the weights that you intend to buy, and you can vary these things as you want. And then, of course, the price that we pay for these cattle varies with their weight. The price data that we downloaded has a file in there, and if you just hit Control T over price, it'll go in there and it'll interpolate the price and tell you what recent prices these cattle would have you'd have paid for them in the at the sale barn. We have, If you've got them in a receiving program, it wants to know what the average daily gain is in that, how many days they're going to be in that receiving program. We put them in up here. We might want them in a little longer if we're bringing them in light. We might want them in a little less time. And then it asks what's your daily gain in on wheat. This year we expect them to do pretty good. We think we're going to have some decent wheat growing conditions. One of the most important numbers in terms of most sensitive numbers in the program is death loss. If we have higher death loss, you're going to see really quick declines in, oops, try that again. And there. I don't want 3% death loss. Try 0.3 there. And then we have stocking density, how heavy are you going to stock these things, and that's head per acre. And obviously this fall might be we might have a good stocking density if we get our wheat up. If in the western part of the state, this is going to be a lower number, and excuse me, a higher number, because it's lower number. It's head per acre, not acre per head. So in the eastern part of the state, we often see 2 acres per head. We'd put in 0.5. In the other part of the state, in the western part of the state, this might be lower. It might be a closer to 3 acres per head, depending on where you're at and what the weather conditions like. We enter in some veterinary costs, some marketing costs, and we've got cost of gain in here. The feed cost of gain information, it's got a worksheet. If you want to go in, you hit Control T and it opens up a worksheet that you can actually put in more information, detailed information. If your hay costs are higher or lower, for example, this will change your cost of gain while you've got them in a receiving program. Your rent, if you're renting your wheat, we can put in the cost. We can do it 2 ways. You can do it either on a dollars per pound of gain, or your dollars per hundredweight per month, depending on what your lease is. It'll allow you to do that, and just calculates what your cost of gain is. I think Trent's numbers recently showed a value of gain of 80 to 90 cents, something like that. And so if we can come in under that, we're going to be doing well. It calculates interest on your operating and on the purchase cost of the steers or heifers. And then as we scroll down, we get into a summary. So we've got our sale weight based on our purchase weight, our days in the receiving program and the gain there, the days grazing wheat and the gain there, and then it takes out death loss. So this computes it with deads in. Sale price will vary depending on what we're going to sell, what weight we sell them for, and this program will calculate it based on recent sale price numbers. But you can always come in and type in your own. Like, well, our local market for heifers might be a little stronger right now. I'm going to go ahead in and bump that just a bit. You can do that without losing the data that is stored in the program. You can always bring the data back in as easy as you want. And then it computes your returns on a per head basis with a break-even sale price and a net return per acre on these. You can save this file, load it back up, use it as many times as you want for different runs. You can use it for different weights that you want to look at. Might want to do a real lightweight one. For example, load it back in, load in the price information, bump my death loss a little bit on that, and then change my sale price again. And we can run lots of different numbers to see what looks like it's going to work best this year. On the price data, I will, as we get closer to fall, I update that data file that's online more often. about weekly, and then as we get into later into November, I stop doing it weekly, maybe every other week, and then as we get into December and January, it's done once a month or so, and then after the first of the year, it doesn't get updated very often at all. After we get past the first of the year, it turns out that I do have other responsibilities that my department head wants me to see to. So if you have somebody that's saying that data is really out of date and they need the program, they need the data updated, just send me an email, give me a call, and I can take the time to update it. Although this says wheat stocker budget generator, it actually will work if somebody's running summer stockers. It'll work if somebody's running a feedlot and they want to project what returns would be, or a producer that wants to put their cattle in a feedlot and pay somebody to feed them out, and you can use the program for that. Although it doesn't say that's what it's for, it'll work for that. The only issue is most of our price data starts petering out when we get over 900 pounds for the sale weight. We just don't have good data for those numbers, and so they'd have to put in their own finish weights when they intend to sell them. Any questions on that? So if you want information on any of these things, you feel free to contact me at my email address, eric.deviste@okstate.edu, or you can call me. You can get a hold of Brent. He'd be glad to provide information to you. And that's all I've got for you this afternoon. So unless there are questions, I'll stick on the session for a little bit, and thank you for attending.
Thank you, Eric. As he said, if you do have questions, please enter them into the chat box in the lower right corner. And also, as he mentioned earlier, we do appreciate your feedback, and we have a short survey that you can fill out. Here's a link to it. And if there's nothing else, I would like to remind everyone that our next webinar will take place on September 5th. And in it, Dr. Rodney Jones will discuss farm business planning. Thank you for viewing this webinar.